Generating traffic and sales can be a challenge for online merchants. But selling on the Walmart Marketplace puts your products in front of millions of customers who shop on Walmart.com. And right now, sellers who join Walmart Marketplace can save up to 50% on referral and fulfillment fees for the first 90 days. So get started today. Head over to marketplace.walmart.com/savings. That's marketplace.walmart.com/savings.
Welcome to E-Commerce Conversations, a podcast by Practical E-Commerce.
What is going on, Internet? Eric Panelitz back again with another E-Commerce Conversations. Hope all is going well on the other side of the Internet. On the other side of the Internet for me, I got a twofer. I got two people. I got Michael and Drew from PostPilot. Welcome, guys.
Eric, good to be here. Thanks for having us. I hope you don't mind that I brought my lovely assistant, Michael Epstein.
It's like a buy one, get one free in terms of talent.
Right. We had all these demos prepared, overhead projectors, slides, and then you told us it was an audio only podcast. So Mike's going to have to give the play-by-play.
Yeah, I'll take off the Vanna White outfit.
I'm running this like I'm living in the 1950s, man. I ain't got time for that video stuff.
That's cool. That's cool.
I'm excited to bring you guys on. You saw I had a guest on here, Pig of the Month.
Yeah.
And Leah Richards. And she's been doing a lot of direct mail. And you guys are in the direct mail space, right? Why don't you give our listeners the whole 30-second spiel of what you guys are doing?
Yeah. So Michael and I both have 20-something year background in e-commerce. We've run brands. Then we started getting into investing and buying and selling brands. And throughout my whole career and Mike's whole career, we always use direct mail. And the reason's because it works really, really well. And I feel like not a lot of D2C retailers and brands are using it. So 3 years ago, we acquired what is now PostPilot. And it's a software platform that automates direct mail. The goal is to make it as easy to use as email. We say it's Klaviyo for postcards. If you use Klaviyo, you kind of know what that means. And we've been experiencing a lot of success this year for a number of reasons I'm sure we're going to get into on the podcast.
Yeah. So, I mean, a little bit more background. I've known Drew not really well, but I saw you speak at, I think it was Dynamite Circle conference. Were you a DCF?
I think it was you, Darian's.
Oh, it was ECF?
ECF, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, so ECF Live, nerd marketing, and I came away from that talk very impressed with the information that you're giving.
I think I peaked with that talk. Everybody loves that talk, and I gave it 15 years ago, maybe, or 10 years ago.
It wasn't that long. I mean, maybe 8 years ago, because we've only been doing this for 10 years. And then, I think you're also being modest with kind of like the buying and selling, like the scale that you were in the automotive space. The scale that you're doing that business just absolutely blows my mind. So
that's odd. It blew my mind too. It's automotive. It's a huge category. So that was, I don't know, $100 million dropship retailer.
Yeah,
and that was funny when the private equity firm brought it to me. It was like, hey, we're looking at acquiring this dropship retailer. And I was like, dropship, who wants to run a dropship brand in 2018? And they're like, oh, it's $100 million top line. They've got 4 million names on the email list. So then it just became a heck of a lot more interesting. But that was Auto Anything. And Michael, who's on the call, went in there with me. He was the CMO of the business and I was the CEO of the business.
So how did you go about finding this business? Like, are you just plugging along on like Flippa, or were you working with these guys before and you're like, hey man, I want to buy your business. Looks cool.
Yeah. I had a long-term relationship with the private equity guy who ran point on the deal and probably worked with him for 8 years or so. And whenever he sees something in digital, I think I'm probably his first or second call. And, it's a collaborative effort. They're like, what do you think about this? And then we could go in and help them with diligence on the deal, identifying opportunities, kind of coming up with, the 30, 60, 90 plan. And then when it became clear that they needed management talent, we stepped in there too.
How's that going? I mean, so how long have you been in there?
Well, we're not anymore. We exited that business in November.
No. I'm sorry, I switched back to
PostPilot?
Yeah, PostPilot. How did you find that? Like, how did you get into that?
Okay, I was thinking you were talking about the automotive
I'm a
business.
terrible interviewer.
How did I find PostPilot?
Yeah.
We were interested in the direct mail space and SaaS. And we had this idea of like, somebody needs to be making sending direct mail as easy as email and doing it through a SaaS platform that's really easy to use. And you and I just went kind of hunting and found a couple of folks that were doing some interesting stuff in the direct mail space. This was one of them. They really shared kind of the vision that we had for the product and had a good start, good understanding of how to execute that. And we just came to an understanding, and he's still on board as the CTO of the company. And it's been great.
Which is unique, I would say, in 15 years of buying and selling businesses, that it was that sort of top down where we knew what we wanted and we went and looked for it and we found it. Epstein, did you get that he made that transition, that he was talking about PostPilot and not Auto Anything?
Could have gone either way.
Or am I just 50?
No worries.
But both good stories.
No worries.
Well, you got both stories.
I didn't want the whole podcast to be talking about an old business that you...
I got you. Yeah.
Or we could just talk
you.
about how you peaked with that talk at ECF Live, 8 years ago.
No, I don't want to talk about that. I want to talk about direct mail. But that's how we found the business. And, it was just the timing was right. That was the timing is right part one. The timing is right part two happened last year when, we woke up. We're both running Auto Anything at the time. And we wake up in November and the company just had a killer month, say several $100,000 in revenue. And we're like, what's going on here? Because we were kind of running it as we were trying to be like the investor operators where whenever it throws off cash, we hire for it, but it's like something we're not directly day-to-day involved with. And, we did some digging, and iOS 14 had come out last year and really took the rug out from under a lot of direct-to-consumer brands that were relying on Facebook. I'm sure you know the story really well, and just drove this surge in interest in direct mail as a channel. So we were fortunately in a position to kind of capture that demand, and it's just been off to the races since then.
Yeah, it's really interesting, like chatting with you guys, because I don't know if you guys knew this or not, but way back in a past life for me, I used to work as a salesman for a commercial printing company. So I used to actually facilitate a lot of direct mail projects with my clients. And there's just, when I think about the tasks that you guys have at hand, just the merging of the digital and the real world, I can't imagine like how many complexities you have. Did you guys have to like acquire a print shop, or are you guys working with partners for that? Or like, how does the production happen?
So initially we started with a printing partner, and we were kind of the software interface that made it really easy. And then ultimately, we realized that we wanted to have more control over the quality. And we completely built out a production center in-house. It's based in South Carolina. And we do all the printing and production out of there now, so that we have just premium quality for the brands that we work with, have full control over the supply chain and visibility of the product that's going out.
Where in South Carolina? That's where I was born and raised.
It's in Greer.
Oh, that's where I'm from, man.
No way.
Yeah, Greer.
I don't know that I've met more than two people from Greer, so that's great.
Yeah, Riverside High School. For any of my listeners who might be from South Carolina, you'll know that area. But
it's so funny.
Yeah.
Well,
next time I go home to see my parents, I'll swing by your plant and crash it.
Yeah, check on the facility for us. Report back, please.
Yeah. Make sure they're doing all this stuff and
that's right.
Keeping the presses running good. Oh,
exactly.
Man, that's too cool. Small world. Like with direct mail, when I was selling print, it was always like the world was your oyster, right? Like you can print big, you can print small. For how you guys are doing it, do you try to keep customers like within a kind of window of how to produce mailing pieces and what those look like?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, you can mail almost anything. So it's as much the message as it is the medium. And I think we try to focus on 3 or 4 standard postcard sizes. and really get the customers focused on kind of the content of what they're putting on the postcard. What's the offer? What's the target we're going to go after? And sort of take away some of the decision paralysis that may set in if we offer anything possible, which you could theoretically do.
Yeah, and not only that, I think like one of the biggest roadblocks when I was selling print was, people getting their data. And you guys have just kind of scrapped that whole issue by utilizing, post-purchase type of flows. Is that correct?
Yeah. So I think the key to PostPilot is the native integration with Shopify and Klaviyo. So what that allows us to do is really easily segment your customers based on the transactional data that you have on them from your Shopify data, just like you would in an email campaign, and also do the triggered automations that you can do like an email flow. So you can set a trigger that says customer purchased product X. They have not come back within 35 days to buy another product. Let's trigger a campaign on day 35 that's individually personalized and goes out to them with an incentive to come back and buy. So all of that can be done because you have the data and integration with Shopify. You can even leverage your Klaviyo segments and lists that you've already created as well through that integration.
Yeah. So, for those who don't know, I actually, at Beard Brand, we've been working with a PostPilot for about a month now, 2 months now. And the way I look at it is, in a perfect world, people are buying from the emails we send out. But unfortunately, emails get a little more cluttered. Google kind of has a say in what gets seen, what doesn't get seen. And then, you're looking for ways to kind of reach out to audience members who maybe are still passionate and still want to buy from your brand, but they're just not seeing the messages the same way. We did a campaign that focused on people who actually unsubscribed from our email list. And we sent that out and we saw, I think right now it's right at a 5x return on ad spend. And that's just from people using the code. That doesn't include people who didn't use the code.
Exactly. And yeah, if you don't mind me sharing the data on that,
we can talk about it. Yeah.
It was awesome. So you've got, not only did we go out to customers that hadn't purchased in over 6 months and up to a year. So these are people that are pretty defected at this point, as well as you said, people that are unsubscribed completely from your email campaigns. They're not getting that message at all. We sent out that campaign and it's now up to an 8x ROAS on the coupon use and a 14x ROAS on just people that got that card and then went on to make a new purchase after receiving it.
Yeah. And I think we were hit hard by the Facebook iOS debacle. We essentially cut all of our Facebook ad spend to zero in November of last year. Is right around the same time where you're just hemorrhaging money and, you can't grow. I don't know if you guys know Eamon as well. He was with AppSumo and he was on the podcast a couple times and he kind of talked about the 3 levers you have for a business. One of them is bringing in new customers. One of them is, selling more volume, increasing your AOV. And then the third one is bringing back customers. So the levers that people tend to focus on are that first one, getting new people to the customer, but they fail to realize how much you can drive growth in your business just by getting people to come back to the store or getting them to spend a couple more dollars on the store as well.
Dude, there's 3 multipliers. That's what we call them. 3 levers, 3 multipliers.
Yeah, look at me.
And I swear I did a presentation on this 10 years ago. So got to find Eamon, track him down.
You're right, the one who did it. It was that talk 8 years ago.
You're right, man. It's
taking credit
for 3 things. Yeah, it's number of customers, it's average order value, and it's frequency of purchase. So how often they come back. And everybody focuses on acquisition, but it's the most expensive, when there's dollars to be made on the other 2. And so, I would say all marketers who have an existing business should probably focus there on retention first and increasing the lifetime value of everything you've acquired. And then when you turn to focus on acquisition, you're going to get a higher ROI because you've built a better net. Everything that happens post-purchase is just going to make your dollars go further on the acquisition side.
Yep. And it's like the dirty little secret in D2C is that because customer acquisition costs are so high, so many of these brands are just marginally profitable on that initial purchase after you have cost of goods and marketing and overhead. So if you're not focusing on LTV Like that's where the profits are coming from in your business.
Yeah, like I'm not a nerd marketer. I'm not a very smart
Nice.
man. So it's taken me many years to kind of figure this out. You always kind of chase the glory of customer acquisition. But I mean, like we've been, over the course of 10 years, we've been able to kind of boost our AOV from like $45 up to $65, which doesn't really seem like a lot, like $20. But, if you think about wanting to be profitable on a customer acquisition, that goes from, what would it be, like $23 cost acquisition to $32, something like that. And then when you factor in the lifetime value, it's essentially double for us. That goes from $80 to $120. And then now all of a sudden you're able to spend a lot more competitively and be able to acquire those customers that maybe your competition can't. So I think I'm just echoing what you said. I mean, just trying to feel smart here around all these smart guys.
No, that's it. I mean, the results multiply too. I mean, you only have to increase each of those three multipliers like 30%, you've doubled the business. So that's why it really becomes compelling.
How are you guys focusing on growing the business PostPilot?
So not growing our customers' businesses, but growing the business itself.
Yeah. I mean, maybe it kind of goes hand in hand, right? Like if your customers' businesses are growing, you're going to be growing, right?
Honestly, we think about it in those same three buckets or three multipliers, but the sort of the software equivalent. So there's customer acquisition, which is customer acquisition. There's, instead of average order value in software, you use something like ARPU, which is average revenue per user per month. And then retention, you look more at churn. You might hear that term a lot in software, is like reducing churn, but it's like really those same three multipliers. And what can we do week to week, quarter to quarter to improve each of them?
I think the key for us is delivering those wins to customers that come in early. And this is their first experience with direct mail. They want to test it out, see if it works for them. We've done so many of these campaigns. We'll walk them through the whole process and even do it for them if they want, just to make sure that they're set up for success. Launch some core campaigns that we know are going to deliver them a great return. And then they continue to want to send more campaigns and figure out what other audiences they can be targeting.
So can you share, like, what are some of the best practices for designing successful campaigns? What can people kind of plan on expecting to invest? And like, how long is it going to take to see their money come back?
Yeah, I would say if you can, we always like to start a customer on retention campaigns. Things like the one we did with Beard Brand, where you identify that defecting customer segment and you use postcards to win them back. So win back, post-purchase, cross-sells, upsells, even abandoned carts. I would say universally, they almost always ROI, and they're very positive, just like a post-purchase email campaign or, a Facebook remarketing campaign to those kind of audiences. And then you get the wins there. And then I think, like Michael said, we try to move more up funnel, and we can experiment with things like prospecting eventually, because that's where you get a lot of volume. But the ROI that you got on your win back campaign of 14 times is not uncommon for a win back. I mean, that's generally speaking, direct mail, email, anything else. That's like that is your sweetest customer segment. If you identify the customers that have bought from you for a while, and then they start slowing down their purchases or no longer purchasing 60, 90 days, whatever it is, bringing them back into the fold is always the most cost-effective, highest return thing you can do. Because technically you've already acquired them. You've got their email, you've got their address. And so it's a matter of just reintroducing them to the brand.
Yeah. And the problem is that if you're just relying on email to do that, typical e-commerce open rates for email campaigns is like 20%. And that's of the people that are actively subscribed. To your point, Eric, earlier, like you have a lot of people that just have fallen off the list. They unsubscribe for whatever reason. You're not able to reach this segment of your customer. I mean, this is your best audience. These are the customers that have shown a willingness to do business with you. And you're not reaching 80+% of them if you're just relying on certain digital channels. And as we talked about, iOS makes it harder to do that through social ads. So there's just a lot of incremental revenue to be gained by adding this channel to that program.
The downside, though, is it doesn't cost, like a fraction of a cent to send out, right? Like, what can people expect to invest in campaigns to get off the ground?
Yeah. So we typically recommend starting with a minimum segment size to get kind of statistically relevant data is about 1,000 people. And so anywhere from kind of 500 to 1,000. And a lot of people choose to start with a bit bigger audience because they want to just test it across multiple segments. But for each one of those, you do kind of 500 to 1,000, gives you a good baseline of knowing how it's going to work for you. Typically, it would cost 49 cents per card to send those out. So less than the cost of a click in most cases. It's more cost effective than a lot of people think. But we also have we call it the Godfather offer because it's an offer you can't refuse, where we'll let you test it out on our dime, assuming you're like a 7-figure plus Shopify store that we think the channel is going to make sense for you. We'll cover the first test and let you kind of see the results for yourself. And then it's, just 49 cents for each card that you send out, whether it's a campaign or whether it's an automated flow that's triggering individually personalized cards.
What are some of the best call to actions that you've seen work for your clients?
Yeah, so we typically would include some sort of incentive, put an expiration date on that incentive because they haven't responded to your campaigns up until this point. They're higher risk of defecting at this point. So it takes a little bit of a nudge to get them to come back. So include an incentive on the card. We see most kind of a best practice these days is now to include a QR code on the card. So we're doing that on most of the campaigns that we're creating and sending out. It just reduces the friction. Like COVID helped reinvigorate the whole QR thing. And so it just makes it really easy to not only get people right back to the site, but you could send them to specific landing pages if you want. You could even send them directly back to cart for an abandoned cart campaign. You could do things with the Shopify integration that like automatically applies the coupon code by scanning the QR code. It just makes it a really low friction experience to come back. And so those are kind of some of the best practices on calls to action. And copy is like, it's a win back. It's like, hey, it's been a little while. We miss you. The common thing you would think about that's on brand for messaging to those customers.
Yeah. And then just some kind of coupon code for gift with purchase or, dollar amount off or, it just kind of runs the gamut for whatever your brand is.
Yeah, exactly. Like I know Beard Brand was doing a discount off a certain minimum order value. And so seeing really good AOV on those repeat purchases because set that minimum, but showing really good AOV on the customers that are coming back.
Yeah, the first time we did it, we didn't have that minimum and our AOV was pretty small. Like there's a lot of people that were not profitable orders, for lack of better terms. But setting that minimum was something that works for us. We don't do a lot of promotions. And I think one of the advantages of direct mail is that if you're doing a promotion, it's just in somebody's house. It's not being broadcast all around the web. It's not going to end up on these, hopefully it doesn't end up on these coupon stores like Honey or wherever those things are. So you can still maintain a little bit of exclusivity with your products and the pricing for the products without, kind of resulting to constantly discounting your products.
Sure. It's that one-to-one relationship between you and your customer. So your competitors don't see it. Honey or Retail Me Not don't see it. And if they do, we often recommend using single-use coupon codes, which we can do through working with Shopify through our integration, which means essentially that your customer gets a coupon that's good for him or her and no one else. So it sort of discourages any sort of viral share of the coupon.
Yeah, that's what we're doing at Beard Brand, single use. And then what I was curious is with these QR codes, is it possible for Shopify to automatically include that code like in a link? So you click on the link and the code already kind of applies it to the cart? Or
Exactly.
Okay.
Yep. So we'll do that a lot now it's just something that you append to the URL and that automatically applies that code. So again, just reduces friction for the consumer.
The other thing I kind of want to add on to, you mentioned a lot about Klaviyo, and we've been a Klaviyo customer for, I think, almost as long as we've been a Shopify customer. And one of the efficiencies of building an e-commerce business is being able to create, in Klaviyo they call them flows, but being able to create like just ongoing marketing messages that go on forever, where once you set it up, once you do the hard work, there's no additional work. And then it just continues to print, quote unquote, print money for you or generate sales for you. And that's what PostPilot is doing. It's allowing you to create these automated, money printing machines, for lack of a better term.
Right. You define a segment, you then can automate the campaign that sends whenever a customer dynamically enters the segment or leaves the segment. And then you can stack those sends on top of each other in more of a flow. So it's really helpful in terms of if you know your margin, you know an amount you could give away on a promotion or discount. You never want to go all the way up to that. I mean, it would behoove any of us to give away the least amount of money or margin necessary to create a customer action and no more. So we always like to see a discount ladder of promotions. If you're going to discount, start low, and then over time, increase the discount with the increasing likelihood that the customer will never come back. And it's just a great way to conserve your promotional dollars.
You mentioned briefly that you guys are talking about customer acquisition through direct mail. Is that something of an option for you guys currently, or is that a down the road thing?
Yeah. So we just introduced, we call it email retargeting or email append, where if you're capturing email prospects through lead capture in Klaviyo, we can actually scrub those email addresses against our database of physical addresses, typically get about a 70% match rate. And then we can retarget that customer even before they make a purchase with a postcard. And these are, again, people that you could set that trigger. They've gotten your abandoned cart email or that's been triggered already. They haven't responded. How else can you make sure that you're reaching them and maximizing the value of all this traffic that you acquired? And that's making sure that you hit them with a postcard. Make sure you get that message in front of them and acquire a new to file customer through that method.
Okay, so it is going to still kind of be like more of a middle of funnel outreach rather than just pure cold, like customer data acquisition and, kind of blasting and praying.
Well, that is also on the roadmap. We don't do that currently, but we've got, the vision would be essentially like a Facebook lookalike audience where you can feed the algorithm some of your customer data and generate prospecting audiences off of it. So that's coming. The app doesn't have it now, but I mean, we're excited to get there.
Yeah, I think the way we think about it is really important because a lot of people, when they think prospecting with direct mail, it's blasting people in a zip code. It's finding everybody that is a 40 to 50-year-old female with this household income. And that is really tough to make work. And so if you're thinking about that as kind of a direct mail strategy for acquisition, like that's why we say start with the lower hanging fruit, work your way up, because that's just not a good place to start. It's really tough to get a high ROI on that kind of cold prospecting direct mail campaign. And so, as Drew said, we're thinking about it more in terms of modeling it more after Facebook and thinking about ways that we know we're going to get an acceptable ROI for the brands that we worked with.
What other major mistakes are people making when they, dip their toes into direct mail?
Yeah, I think that's definitely one of them. Also, having too broad segments. So this is a best practice that we have for everybody that we set up, and also why a lot of folks just want to use our concierge complimentary service to help them get set up because they just don't know where to start and they don't know what those best practices are. So what a lot of folks might do is they'll say, okay, I just want to target everybody that hasn't purchased in 90 days with a postcard campaign. So let me get this giant audience and send them a campaign and see what the results are. How we would structure that is say, let's break that into different cohorts. Let's look at repeat customers, people that purchased twice or more versus one-time customers. Let's break it into people that haven't purchased in the last 90 to 120 days versus 120 to 150 or 180 to 365. We can break those segments up and track each of those cohorts independently, see the ROI on each of those audience segments. And that really allows us to understand where the money is best spent, which audiences are responding best, where you're getting the best ROI, so that you're kind of doubling down and focusing your effort on the audiences and campaigns that are working without spending the money on, targeting people that are just too far gone. In some brands, 180 days, 365 days, you're not getting a great ROI. So by lumping all of those into the same audience, you just don't get that level of detail to understand which perform well versus the ones that don't make sense to send to.
Yeah. Where can people reach out to you guys, get support, connect with you online, or learn more about your product?
Yeah, you can email either of us, Michael at PostPilot, Drew at PostPilot. But the offer Mike mentioned, where we'll do it all for you is at postpilot.com/GFO for Godfather offer. Yeah. Hit us up, ask more questions. It's really a great channel, I think, that should be in any marketer's toolkit. It's what sort of drove online brands before there was online. This was how marketers marketed from like the 50s until 2000, right? Via catalogs. And so the channel's not going anywhere. It's still there. And it's becoming more attractive as other ones become less attractive.
Yeah, it's direct mail that's lean without all the fat of inefficiencies that come along with old school direct mail. So whether that be the creation and the data exports and all that, it's just kind of simple and painless. Guys, this has been another e-commerce conversations. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. These guys are very bright, very smart people. I've put my money where my mouth is. I've been a customer in them, and we've made some money at Beard Brand, so I appreciate that. Thanks for giving us that GFO, Godfather offer, that we couldn't resist. This has been another e-commerce conversations. Cheers. Keep on growing.
Thanks, Eric.